This power plant had two pairs of new generation reactors, the RBMK. Every reactor had its own set of machinery, building, teams, and many more. The Soviet government planned to install two more twin reactors, number 5 and 6, as well as the reactor buildings. These two large structures were never finished being constructed. Now they stand as monumental relics of the Soviet Union's grand ambitions in nuclear energy. Hello guys. Yet again we continue with the Fusion of Fact and Fiction mini-series. The previous videos are already organized in existing playlists, so you can always check them out later. If you are new to our channel or this particular series, this and other episodes provide you with mainly two things. A bit of knowledge about the real-life place inside the Chernobyl Exclusion Zone, and a bit of context on how we recreated and used it in our game, Chernobylite. And no matter if you are new here or are a long-time supporter, just a quick reminder. In the middle of August, so 3 weeks ago, we announced the sequel of our game, Chernobylite 2 Exclusion Zone. Watch the announcement trailer later, you can find it on the channel's main page and also linked in this video description. As always, I also encourage you to wishlist it on Steam. You will find the link in the first pinned comment, as YouTube doesn't like linking to other sites in the description, unfortunately. But let's start the episode now. Chernobyl Exclusion Zone. The Fusion of Fact and Fiction. Part 10. The Cooling Towers. You probably know about the tragic disaster of Chernobyl that happened on 26 April 1986. The Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant was supposed to be one of the most innovative of its kind in the 1970s and 80s. The less common knowledge is that the reactors were installed one by one, not all at the same time. And their technology, despite being far from ideal, was still under heavy development during this process. This power plant had two pairs of new generation reactors, the RBMK. The first two were twins, as well as numbers 3 and 4. The Soviet government planned to install two more twin reactors, number 5 and 6, which, as you may have already guessed, didn't happen due to the infamous disaster. If you're interested in the RBMK reactors, check out our RBMK design and history miniseries. You can find a dedicated 12-episode playlist on our channel for that. But for now, that's enough background information needed for the proper context. Every reactor had its own set of machinery, building, teams, and many more. It was the same with the cooling towers. When the disaster hit, unfinished reactor buildings 5 and 6 had already been prepared to be connected to their own cooling towers. As well as the buildings, these were never constructed, or were never finished being constructed, I should rather say. Now, the unfinished cooling towers of reactors 5 and 6 at the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant stand as a monumental relics of the Soviet Union's grand ambitions in nuclear energy. As I just said, these towers were part of an expansive plan to elevate Chernobyl as a central hub in the Soviet Union's nuclear power strategy, designed to significantly boost the plant's capacity and cement the USSR's position as a global leader in nuclear energy. Their construction reflected the era's characteristic drive for rapid industrial and technological development, with Reactor 5 nearing 70% completion by the time disaster struck. They were envisioned not only as functional components of the plant, but as symbols of the Soviet Union's technological prowess and forward-looking vision. However, as you already know, the catastrophic explosion of Reactor 4 on April 26, 1986 abruptly halted these plans, leaving the towers as incomplete and abandoned monuments to a future that would never be realized. The disaster turned what was meant to be a showcase of Soviet ingenuity into a graveyard of unfinished projects. The skeletal frames of these cooling towers now dominate the landscape of the Chernobyl Exclusion Zone, standing as haunting reminders of the ambitions cut short by the disaster. Their towering forms, visible from miles around, evoke a sense of loss and tragic interruption of progress, symbolizing a moment in history when human ambition collided with the harsh realities of nuclear power. In real life, the cooling towers for reactors 5 and 6 were designed as part of the second phase of the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant's development. These reactors were intended to operate with a shared infrastructure which included cooling towers, water supplies and other critical systems. Reactor 5 was approximately 70% complete at the time of the disaster, while Reactor 6 was still in its early stages, with only a foundation and lower levels in place. Construction on these reactors and their associated cooling towers was halted immediately after the Chernobyl explosion, as the full scale of the disaster became apparent. Despite this, work briefly resumed in October 1986, driven by the Soviet Union's initial determination to continue expanding its nuclear capabilities. However, by April 1987 the project was once again halted, and in May 1989, the decision was made to abandon the reactors altogether. The unfinished cooling towers, with their towering yet incomplete structures, were left to decay, slowly becoming a part of the eerie landscape of the Chernobyl Exclusion Zone. These structures are some of the largest in the zone, if not the largest. They were supposed to be 150 meters high and 126 meters in diameter. For example, the height of another monumental structure inside the zone, the Russian Woodpecker, or simply Duga-1, a Soviet over-the-horizon radar, is also 150 meters high and about 700 meters wide. Today, these unfinished towers are a striking feature of the Chernobyl Exclusion Zone. Their massive, rusting framework rise above the surrounding forest, visible from miles away. The interiors of the towers, intended to house complex cooling systems, are now empty, with only the skeletal remains of construction equipment and scaffolding scattered across the site. Nature has begun to reclaim the area, with trees and vegetation growing around and even within the structures. But you can still find many remnants of the past era in this place. If you had enough time, you would probably explore the unfinished structures well and find graffiti or even artistic murals. The towers, once symbols of Soviet industrial might, now stand as reminders of the human and environmental cost of the Chernobyl disaster. They also attract a certain mystique, partially due to their inaccessibility and the dangers associated with visiting the site. Metal reclamation operations, along with the presence of stray dogs and occasional human activity, add to the site's sense of decay and abandonment. For those who manage to visit, the towers offer a haunting glimpse into the unfinished legacy of Chernobyl and the ambitions that were never realized. In Chernobylite, the cooling towers of reactors 5 and 6 are brought to life with a level of detail and atmosphere that captures both the grandeur and the desolation of real-world structures. We have recreated them using our own technology, drone and manual recordings and photographs, but mostly hard work. The cooling towers map is a fairly new addition to Chernobylite. It appeared recently with one of the final updates. Now you can explore the site either during regular play or in the tour around the zone mode, in which you can peacefully take a good look and learn more about the disaster through the interaction with special NPCs and notes we placed on the map. In the game, these towers are imbued with a sense of mystery and danger, reflecting the broader themes of the game, which include survival, exploration, and the lingering effects of the Chernobyl disaster. You will encounter the towers as part of your journey through the exclusion zone, where you must navigate the dangers of radiation, crumbling infrastructure, and the ever-present threat of discovery by hostile forces. Or monsters, which are also present in Chernobylite. Our use of lighting and sound enhances the ominous atmosphere of the towers, making them feel both vast and claustrophobic, a place where danger could be lurking around any corner. In addition to their atmospheric impact, the cooling towers in Chernobylite also serve as a reminder of the unfinished business of Chernobyl, both in terms of the physical structures that were left behind and the unresolved stories of those who were affected by the disaster. Our game uses these towers to explore themes of abandonment, decay, and the passage of time, drawing parallels between the real-world history of the Chernobyl disaster and the fictional narrative of our game. Overall, the cooling towers of reactors 5 and 6 are more than just a faithful recreation of a real-world location in Chernobylite. Same as other iconic places, they are a vital part of the game's storytelling, providing you with a tangible connection to the history and legacy of Chernobyl. Through these towers, the game captures the essence of a place frozen in time, where the past continues to cast a long shadow over the present. As always, I hope you have enjoyed this video and maybe even learned something new or interesting. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe, as there is going to be much more info, for example on our Chernobylite 2 Exclusion Zone in the following weeks and months. If you have any questions, including the game's sequel, feel free to write in the comments section. That's it for today, guys. Take care, stay safe, and see you next week.